A child's experience during a Nile flood. The Nile. It was always there, a constant companion, a shimmering ribbon winding through our lives. But as the days grew longer, and the sun beat down with relentless fury, the river began to change. It swelled, its banks straining, a silent promise of something immense and terrifying. At first, it was a gentle rise, a slow creep up the familiar shores. We children would play at its edge, daring each other to get closer, giggling as the water lapped at our toes. It seemed a game, a harmless dance with a friendly giant. But soon, the river's playful nature vanished. It grew darker, angrier, its currents swirling with newfound strength. The gentle giant was transforming into a ravenous beast, hungry and unpredictable. My father, a man of unwavering faith, saw it differently. He spoke of the gods, of their benevolence, of the life-giving waters that would nourish our lands. He called it a blessing, a gift from the heavens. But I saw only chaos. I saw homes swallowed whole, fields turned into lakes, and the fear etched on the faces of my neighbors. This was no blessing. This was destruction. Then came the night the river roared. A sound like 1,000 angry lions, a deafening crash that shook the very foundations of our home. A scream pierced the night, my sister Nefertari's cry, sharp and filled with terror. I remember stumbling through the darkness, the grand hall now unrecognizable. Furniture bobbed like toys, scrolls floated aimlessly, and the air was thick with the smell of mud and despair. The hall, once a place of warmth and laughter, was now a swirling mess of debris and water. The water was already knee-deep, a cold, relentless tide pushing against us. It tugged at our clothes, threatened to sweep us away, a constant reminder of the river's power. The flood was no longer a distant threat, it was here, inside our home, consuming everything in its path. Nefertari was clinging to a large wooden table, her face pale, her eyes wide with fear. The table rocked precariously, threatening to capsize, leaving her at the mercy of the raging river. She was small, fragile, and utterly helpless against the overwhelming force of the water. The guards, usually so stoic and strong, were scrambling to secure the shutters, their faces etched with panic. They shouted orders, their voices lost in the roar of the flood, their efforts seemingly futile against the relentless onslaught. The shutters groaned and buckled, threatening to give way at any moment. A cold, sharp realization pierced through my fear. This was not just a flood. This was a life-or-death struggle. And Nefertari was in mortal danger. Without thinking, without heeding the shouts of the guards, I plunged into the icy water. The shock stole my breath, the cold numbing my limbs, but I pushed forward, driven by a primal instinct to protect my sister. I had to reach her. The current was a relentless enemy, pulling me back, trying to drag me under. Each step was a battle, each breath a victory. The water swirled around me, blinding me, choking me, but I fought on, fueled by adrenaline and desperation. The icy water stole the feeling from my hands and feet. My vision blurred, my head pounded, and the roar of the flood filled my ears. It was a disorienting, terrifying experience, but I kept my eyes fixed on Nefertari, her terrified face a beacon in the chaos. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, I reached her. Her small hands gripped mine with desperate strength, her body trembling with cold and fear. Relief washed over me, a brief moment of hope amidst the chaos. But the battle was far from over. I wrapped my arms around her, pulling her close, trying to shield her from the force of the water. Then, summoning every ounce of strength I possessed, I began to drag her towards the relative safety of the doorway. It was agonizingly slow progress. Each step was a struggle, each inch gained a victory hard-won. The current fought against us, the debris snagged at our clothes, and the cold threatened to sap our strength. But I held on, driven by the unwavering determination to save my sister. Just as my strength began to fail, one of the guards managed to secure the shutters, stemming the flow of water into the hall. The immediate threat lessened, the current eased, and a collective sigh of relief swept through the room. We were safe, for now. I pulled Nefertari into the relative safety of the doorway, collapsing onto the dry stone floor. We were both shivering, soaked to the bone, but alive. The raging flood still roared outside, but we were out of its immediate reach. I held Nefertari close, wrapping my arms around her, trying to warm her. She was sobbing, her small body shaking uncontrollably. I whispered words of comfort, promises of safety, trying to soothe her terror. We sat there, huddled together, shivering in the cold, the trauma of the near-drowning etched on our faces. The flood still raged outside, a constant reminder of the danger we had just faced, but we were together. And that, for the moment, was enough. As the dawn broke, painting the sky in hues of gray and orange, we ventured outside. The scene that greeted us was one of utter devastation. Houses had collapsed, their roofs submerged, their walls crumbled into piles of mud. Trees had been uprooted, their branches twisted and broken, their roots exposed like raw wounds. The river, once a source of life, had become a force of destruction, swallowing everything in its path. Fields were gone, replaced by vast expanses of muddy water. The landscape was unrecognizable, transformed into a watery wasteland. I looked at the destruction, at the ruined homes and the drowned fields, and I questioned my father's words. Was this truly a blessing? Was this the gift of the gods? Or was it a punishment, a cruel and arbitrary display of power? My father, standing beside me, his face etched with sorrow, saw my doubt. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his touch firm and reassuring. "The ways of the gods are mysterious," he said, his voice low and somber. "We may not understand their purpose, but we must trust in their wisdom." Nefertari was safe. That was the only thought that mattered. Amidst the chaos and destruction, amidst the fear and uncertainty, she was alive. And that was a glimmer of hope, a spark of light in the darkness. We had faced the river's wrath together, and we had survived. Our bond, already strong, had been forged anew in the crucible of crisis. We had found strength in each other, a resilience that we never knew we possessed. But the water was still rising. The flood had not yet reached its peak. The threat remained, a constant reminder of our vulnerability, of our dependence on the whims of the gods. Fear lingered, a cold knot in my stomach. What would happen next? How much higher would the river rise? Would our home survive? Would we survive? The questions swirled in my mind, unanswered, unanswerable. All we could do was wait. Wait and pray. Pray to the gods for mercy, for deliverance, for an end to the flood. Pray that the river would recede, that the sun would shine again, that life would return to normal. But even as we prayed, we knew that the future was uncertain, that the gods held our fate in their hands.